शाह वंशको विरासतको रूपमा रहेको श्रीतेज र राजदण्ड चिरकाल पर्यन्त सुरक्षित रूपमा राख्ने गरी संरक्षणका लागि आजकै मितिमा नेपाल सरकारको जिम्मामा रहने गरी मैले हस्तान्तरण गरेको छु।
Nepal's 240-year-old monarchy was abolished following a 10-year-long civil war and a 19 days people's uprising in 2063. Since then, for well over 15 years, Nepal has lived as a federal democratic republic where a head of state is appointed from the public and not from a monarchical family. After the abolishing of the institution and losing political power, ex-King Gyanendra Shah kept low profile and have been carefully silent when it comes to making any political comment. However, in recent years, Shah has increased the frequency of his political meetings both in Nepal and abroad and have been making edgy and sensitive political remarks. At the same time, due to the frustration and anguish towards the current political scenario, some people are increasingly voicing their support for the reinstitution of the fallen monarchy. But is it really the solution? Should we really reinstate the system? No, and here's why. Before we continue, I just want to tell you a little story. I remember there was a time when Nepalese football was going through a very rough phase. Wins were scarce and there was drought of tournament cups for years. So to solve this issue, we decided to hire a former Chelsea footballer as our head coach. After the appointment of the new head coach, me and a lot of other football fans were extremely hopeful that the situation will transform overnight. We all thought all the problems that our national team faces will be solved overnight, since now we had the magic wand. But that didn't happen. Yes, there were few good performances, but overall his tenure was nothing special. He went back home quietly. Well, why is this relevant to our story? It is, and we'll come to that in a minute. Before that, let's discuss what monarchy is. We Nepalese are no stranger to monarchy. We fully understand what it is and how it works. This system has been a major part of our society for almost throughout our history. Basically, there are two types of monarchy. One is absolute monarchy and the second one is constitutional monarchy. In an absolute monarchy, a family is given all the powers to rule over a country and its people are regarded as their subjects. The royal family is considered above any national law and are not liable to it. And this is what we had up until 2046. Following the 2047 People's Movement, it was downgraded to the second type of monarchy, which is constitutional monarchy. In this form of monarchy, the monarch or the king is limited to a purely ceremonial role and democratically elected parliament passes laws and appoints prime ministers. In theory, this sounds like an ideal compromise between a republic and an absolute monarchy. However, this system also has a lot of flaws and potential for disasters. Monarchy, by its very nature, embodies a fundamentally deceptive form of governance. The philosophy behind monarchy is rooted in a falsehood. That is, the belief that certain families are chosen by a divine entity to rule over a particular nation. Monarchy considers itself unlike any other form of government and thinks it is a sacred duty of every citizen to fully submit to the idea. In my opinion, this is a flawed and oppressive philosophy. In today's day and age, it is merely a leftover reminder of old family-based dictatorships without any inherent value that sets it apart from other forcibly imposed forms of government. Logically speaking, it's really hard to find a good reason why a family who calls themselves royal deserves a whole political system built around them rather than just any ordinary family. Having said all this, some people still argue that monarchy is uniquely suited in Nepal's context. Monarchists in Nepal today present two main arguments for their case. Number one, they argue since constitutional monarchy is purely ceremonial, this will not be in conflict with democracy and people's rule. Number two, monarchy in Nepal's context can be a unifying factor and can act as a pillar of neutrality in a deeply divided political environment. They also argue that this will elevate Nepal's standing in international diplomatic arena. Now let's address these points one by one. Monarchists argue that they are only talking about constitutional monarchy and all the powers will still be with the people and the king will only act as a ceremonial head of state. This is a self-defeating argument because if the king is not going to have any political power and is only on a ceremonial capacity, how is that going to change any of the country's problems? We already have a ceremonial institution to perform ceremonial duties, unless you want Janta ko chhoro to do the hard work while a king takes credit and enjoys all the royal privileges. Yo ta kaam गर्ने कालु मकै खाने भालु भने जस्तो भएन र? In addition to that, it's not like we have not tried that before. It's not like we haven't given the benefit of doubt to the system. Both in 2007 and 2047, we kept the status quo and trusted the monarchy to do the right thing. But both times, monarchy overstepped its bounds and snatched power from the people. Taking advantage of the political instabilities that occurred immediately after major people's movements, kings snatched power back from the people. In an infant democracy, instability and chaos is inevitable and temporary. It's from this seemingly chaotic environment does a healthy democracy emerges. However, it doesn't give anyone a reason to start a dictatorship. But that's what happened both times. Our democracy was brutally killed both times in its infancy. Who's to say that this won't happen again? Are we ready to take that chance? The second argument is that the monarchy can be a source of unity, an institution free of toxicity, and a pillar of neutrality. This is a very dishonest argument as well. Even if we ignore all these historical lessons we talked earlier, can monarchy really be a unifying and universally loved institution? No. You see, in a democracy, there is no such thing as universal agreement. There's always going to be difference in opinion. And who's to say that the royal family isn't going to do something stupid and create some controversy that would make people dislike the monarchs themselves and cause social division? Therefore, this argument only works where the discussions of the sorts we are having right now do not exist. In short, monarchy is a political system like any other. And like any other political system, it is not immune to divisiveness, unless there is no freedom of speech, which I believe is something none of us wants to lose. Regarding increasing Nepal's reputation in international community, this is an incomplete and wrong argument as well. If the king is going to be ceremonial only, all the diplomatic policies and protocols are still going to be created by the same political leaders. And there is no difference whether we have a king or a president, unless we let kings make their own decision when it comes to foreign policies. We all know, in a practical sense, the only way to elevate our reputation overseas is to enact better foreign policies. This can only be done by elected representatives in collaboration with foreign policy experts. We got rid of our monarchy 16 years ago, but some of the prominent leaders are saying we should bring them back. Why though? What exactly will that achieve? In my opinion, Nepalese people don't really care about whether the monarchy comes back or not, but I do believe that they care deeply about the country. Yes, the current ruling class have failed us, and we are extremely frustrated by the current political environment. Some politicians are taking advantage of this exact feeling of love for the country and frustration towards the current ruling class as a means to rescue their own failing political careers. They are peddling these same dishonest arguments every single day. Leaders like Ravindra Mishra don't hesitate to praise British monarchy, who was responsible for, among other things, centuries of slave trade, literally enslaving human beings. Same monarchy which committed massacres in Africa as early as 1950s, when Queen Elizabeth herself was on the throne. To all the people who are frustrated by the current political leaders, I would like to say that at least you can be frustrated by them. You can say things, protest against them, and if nothing works, you can even throw them out on elections. You can't do that to a king. Once you have reinstated a king, there is no going back. And if God forbid, what if you decided you don't like him anymore? Get rid of him again? And how exactly will you do that? Well, you can't. If only there was a system where you could get rid of a head of state every 5 years, or at least reevaluate their performance and decide on their fate. You see, democracy is hard work. It's messy and needs each and everyone's input to make it successful. Maybe what we need is not a king. Maybe what we need is to get rid of all those who are failing our country and replace them with qualified and competent new faces. But the thing is, it is not an easy solution. It needs work. It is not like having a magic wand, a king who would just fix it just like that. This brings us to our little story that I told you earlier about the football coach. While we celebrated the incoming of a new expensive coach and thought our football will reach new heights, we were completely oblivious to the real problem. The real problem to our football was lack of grassroots level investment, encouragement of school level sports, strengthening of local and national level leagues, and providing better playing conditions to the players. We did not want to think about that, because it was complex and required real work. We just wanted a magic wand instead. Maybe our political climate today is the same. It needs grassroots level investment. Maybe we as citizens need to unite, share, and discuss various ideas, debate and elect better people from the local level. Not a magic wand, not an expensive coach, not a king. If we want to get rid of all these tested and failed figures, or at least make them change their behavior, we need to do it from the bottom by electing better parliamentarians. Change always happens from bottom to top, never the other way around. As per my final thought, I have nothing against Ravindra Mishra. In fact, I really liked his idea of welfare state, his policies on education, health, and his movement against corruption. However, after failing on his political ambition, he is pushing this desperate idea that a king is somehow going to bring us utopia. I also don't have anything personal against Kanindra Shah or any of his family members either. If tomorrow he decides to run on an election and has good agendas and policies, I'm happy to vote for him. But he must earn my vote just like any other candidate. What I am not going to do is carry him on my back, put him on a throne, and become his subject. Why do we have so much inferior mentality? Why do we think that the only way out of this is for some Maharaja to come as a messiah and protect us all? Instead of doing that, why can't we all strive for something great ourselves? While we are being submissive and saying, Raja aao, desh bachao, what impressions are we leaving towards our kids? We are just passing that same inferior mentality onto them. We are teaching them that the change is not up to them. Instead, why don't we teach them that they themselves can achieve something great? Why don't we teach our young children that one day they can be the country's next president or prime ministers themselves? Maybe that way, instead of just one family, a whole new generation can dream of becoming king or queen themselves.